Portland Police Bureau. They've got officers leaving left and right. The feds are on them about use of force. They're dealing with a record number of shootings in the city. And on top of all of that, the team that responds to protests just quit. And we're waiting until we hit that magic vaccine number to reopen Oregon. But since we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, restaurants can't be prepared.
There's a lot of work to do. When we hit 70%, it's not like flipping a light switch and everyone's happy and everyone's dancing around.
And if you thought we were done talking about Burrito Gate, think again, because now PETA has entered the chat. Here's the story.
All right, thanks for being with us. Hello, I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to The Story, 7:30 p.m. edition. We're usually not on at this time. You may be seeing us on your TV and going, what is this? Well, it's the news, kind of. We're usually on at 6 o'clock, so if you like what you see tonight, come check us out at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Set your DVR, find us online, all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, this is how the show works. We get feedback from you, the viewers, the people at home, and then we use that to build this newscast. So if you have ideas, if you have some things that you don't think the news is covering, you want to see covered, or you have a gripe with the local news, well, then this is your show. Email us at thestory@kgw.com. You can find me, Dan Haggerty, on Facebook or Instagram, or use Twitter and the hashtag HeyDan. As always, I address a few of the comments at the end of the show, so stick around for that. Now, again, if you're unfamiliar with this show, we do things a little bit different around here. Like, we might decide to lead the show with a story about a burrito. That's right, we've got an update for you now on Burrito Gate. Now, let me get you caught up first. This is Shelby Houlihan, an Olympic runner who trains with Nike's Bowerman Track Club in Portland. She went to the Olympics in 2016, so she knows what she's doing. She was planning to go back this year until she failed a drug test. Now she's been banned from the sport for the next 4 years, but she claims she wasn't doping. Instead, she says she was snacking on a burrito from a food cart in Beaverton. I know. It sounds strange, not the excuse you're used to hearing, but there's actually been some studies that show some pork meat, specifically from the liver of uncastrated males, can trigger a positive test for a chemical called nandrolone. It's an anabolic steroid of testosterone, so it increases muscle mass, and it's banned in sports. The thing is, her lawyer says she actually didn't order pork. She really ordered a carne asada burrito. But they think there was some sort of like cross-contamination or an order mix-up. I'm not sure how this argument's going to help her case, but she is appealing that suspension. And because of that appeal, USA Track and Field announced earlier today that she would actually still be able to compete in the Olympic trials in Eugene, which start tomorrow. So if by some chance the ban does get overturned, she can still run in the trials, potentially make the Olympics, and she still has a shot at going to the games. And because this story just won't stop getting any weirder, PETA is now involved. They're sending Houlihan a gift basket of pig-free treats, as they call it, including vegan pork, jerky, chorizo, and al pastor. But I have to point out, PETA, Houlihan's lawyers say she didn't order pork, she ordered carne asada, so maybe you should have sent her some carnat asada or something like that. Either way, let's get to the big story. Now, not to state the obvious here, but our city has seen, let's call it a lot of protests during the last year. Some have been peaceful, while others have turned into riots with multiple arrests and broken windows and tear gas, and I don't have to remind you about last summer. Those protests often had a heavy police presence, and those officers were part of something the Portland Police Bureau calls the Rapid Response Team. But last night, that entire Rapid Response Team decided to resign. Now, this doesn't quite mean that they quit their jobs. They didn't. They're going to remain Portland police officers. But that team that responds to the protests and the riots essentially no longer exists now. About 50 cops were on this team, and they had specialized training in crowd control. PPB's acting police chief says 14 months of dealing with large groups of angry people on the streets night after night after night. The officers, frankly, are exhausted. But something else happened this week that tipped the scales. One of their own was indicted for assault. Corey Budworth, this is him in the video, a member of the Rapid response team accused of hitting a woman in the head with a baton during a protest in August of last year. Budworth is accused of using unjustified and unlawful force against that woman, who is a freelance journalist who was covering the protest. The rapid response team has taken a lot of heat over the past year for their tactics when those protests got violent. Portland City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty wanted the team to be eliminated in the past and some budget cuts prior to this last fall. Officers have been accused over and over of using too much force against people when they were trying to clear streets. We talked to Portland Police Lieutenant, one of them, last year. Maybe you saw it on the story. He said at the time that using what he called pain compliance is something and sometimes the best way to break up a dangerous situation.
So this is kind of a better way to catch their attention and say, hey, stop what you're doing. It's time to leave the area. The other thing is making it uncomfortable for people or trying to change their behavior through pain compliance. There's no way around it. But sometimes some simple pain compliance in terms of using a riot control agent will accomplish the goal of changing the behavior, stopping the dangerous thing that's happening without having to use other physical force that has a higher risk of injury.
So, Portland's acting chief, Chris Davis, said this morning that the indictment against Budworth was the last straw for those officers after what officers have been subjected to over the past year.
I think that really this is the culmination of a very long process, and it's not just an indictment that caused this to happen. I think this really has very deep roots and some really just, I don't even have the adjective for it, just really unbelievable things that they have been exposed to and subjected to over the last 14 months, particularly in the second half of 2020. And, I understand that those are very complex issues, but I also understand their perspective that, if you put a human being through what they were put through, that takes a toll.
And it's hard to argue that, okay? Officers have been through a lot, and not just in the past year. In the last decade, they've had 7 different police chiefs. Some of them have left for bigger cities. Some of them have been fired for things like criticizing the mayor or getting drunk and shooting a friend during a hunting trip. PPB is also under a DOJ investigation for excessive use of force and a pattern of killing people with mental illness. And nearly every time the DOJ checks in on that, PPB isn't doing very well with it. The Bureau is understaffed for a city this size, and they haven't been able to recruit enough new officers to replace the ones that are leaving. And they're now losing millions of dollars under the city's new proposed budget. Oh, yeah, and gun violence has increased exponentially in the last year. All of that on top of the riots.
When I had that explosive thrown at me, I saw it. I thought it was maybe just like a little firework or something like that, and I realized something was wrong. And I didn't. You see a flash. I didn't even see a flash. I just felt it, and it was hot, and I felt tingling in my fingertips. It was a very powerful blast, and to think that someone has that much anger and hatred, they don't even know someone to throw something like that, and just not care. It's sad. It really is.
Now you might be thinking, okay, so this group of riot police quit. They're not going to show up. What if there was a riot tonight? Well, police say the officers who are normally on patrol would then respond to it, but that causes kind of a ripple effect because those officers aren't out on patrol, so there'd be a slower response to some calls in the city. We are also told, though, that the state police could step in if things truly get out of hand.
We've shown you what life is like inside Oregon's only women's prison.
Where we think that people don't think about us. We think that people forgot about us.
So now let's check in with those women and take a look at their lives on the outside.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? So good. So good.
Oh my God, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
When the story continues.
Hey, welcome back. So apparently I missed a detail in the Burrito Gate story. The athlete who was banned because of something that she says was in a burrito that caused her to fail a drug test for testosterone or steroids. Apparently she was allowed to compete again during her appeals process, and later this afternoon was told that she couldn't race again. So apparently she can't race anymore, and in her mind the burrito is to blame. Welcome back. Hi. If you're watching us for the first time, you should know that I usually get everything right, and this is an anomaly. Also, that your feedback helps drive the coverage of this show. So please send us your thoughts and your questions and your comments to the story at kgw.com or use that hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Now, we want to circle back for a second to an update on a story that's years in the making, honestly. In February of 2020, right before the pandemic, we aired a 3-part in-depth series here on the story called Life Inside. For more than a year, we followed 3 women getting ready to leave Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, Oregon's only women's prison. They had worked hard to set themselves up for success on the outside. Well, let's fast forward now to tonight, where all 3 women are indeed outside, out of prison. And we wanted to know how they're doing. Here's an update with Maggie Vespa.
I feel like a caged animal.
It takes a lot for anyone to open up on camera.
I didn't know how to cope with my daughter fighting cancer.
The access and honesty KGW got filming Life Inside was unprecedented.
I turned to prescription medication that I was being prescribed as a coping mechanism.
Back in February 2020, we introduced you to Vanessa Sherrod, Mariah Williams, and Amy Lorenzo, 3 women atoning for the biggest mistakes of their lives and nearing the end of their sentences at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, Oregon's only women's prison.
I've been cut off from everything in the outside.
Sherrod was here for multiple counts of theft, Lorenzo for forgery and theft, Williams for arson and assault.
I wasn't going around committing crimes prior to this incident that happened.
All 3 women had battled addiction and worked hard in prison to get clean. We followed them as they progressed through the LIFE program, a small business course run by Mercy Corps Northwest. The goal? To get them in the mindset of building a plan and taking control of their lives.
Walking on the Capitol grounds.
Vanessa Sherrod was the first to get released. She was reunited with her family, including her 3 kids, Necho, Roxana, and Sophia, in December 2019. To say Sherrod is doing well is an understatement.
I just recently finished my associate's degree, and I just got certified as a PWS. It's a peer wellness specialist.
That degree is in social work, and she's already putting it to use. We met Sherrod Monday outside Oregon's capital. The backdrop is symbolic. She's working full-time for the YWCA, advocating for women in prison. Exactly what she told us she wanted to do when we first met her for our series. Lately, her work's been focused on lobbying Oregon legislators to renew funding for the Family Preservation Project.
It gave me purpose as a mom. I was inside.
The program, captured in this documentary, Mothering Inside, ensures kids can visit their moms in prison. After everything she's been through, Sherrod has endless drive to make sure women still inside Coffee Creek have the resources she had.
The opportunity I had to access the program, there was moms before me that fought for that. And now we're here all together fighting for the moms after us because we know the importance for the kids.
Next up, Mariah Williams. We hadn't spoken to her since 2019.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? So good. So good.
Oh my God, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
I talked to Williams on her lunch break from her full-time job painting houses. She told me she just got approved for her first credit card.
Oh, my credit has been building since then. And yay.
Williams was released in July 2020, peak pandemic. I asked if that was hard.
Actually, for me, I mean, my friends and my family didn't expect me to go to large gatherings, it would have been a lot harder for me. I was wearing a mask. Nobody could recognize me right off the bat and say, "Oh, there's a girl with the prison." It was actually kind of helpful.
Since then, you can see Williams has opened up. She's spending more and more time with friends and family. As for the future, she has her eye on the kind of work she talked about in Coffee Creek, working with teenagers, specifically helping them learn outdoor skills. And she, like Sherrod, credits her time at Coffee Creek and in the LIFE program with giving her the skills to make that happen.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. And like all of the things that I'm learning with this remodeling stuff, I want to get kids involved in things like this too.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you, dude. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been really awesome. I've gone on a lot of little adventures and hiking and camping, and I've just had a blast.
All right, Maggie Vespa joining us now.
Hey.
So you did profile 3 women, and we heard from Vanessa, we heard from Mariah. What about Amy?
Yeah, so we reached out to Amy Lorenzo a few times starting last week, and we haven't heard back, and that's completely okay because we kind of expected that in at least one of the cases. We know everyone in our piece and our series was dealing with a lot, obviously, in their personal lives, and plus, oh yeah, we've been through a pandemic and a lot of things since. So, we just wish her really well, and we're so happy with how Mariah and Vanessa are doing too.
Unbelievable. It's very nice to see. Maggie, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to remind everyone about our Hey Help campaign this week. We are asking you to consider donating to the YWCA's Family Preservation Project. It supports families involved in the criminal justice system by coordinating visits between incarcerated mothers and their children and their families, and helping those families to live a productive life as they transition and leave prison. To donate, open the camera on your phone and point it at the QR code on your screen. You can also go to kgw.com/heyhelp. Now, once you go there, there's going to be a drop-down menu, select Family Preservation Project. We're calling this a micro donation drive, so please feel free to give any amount. It doesn't need to be a big amount. No matter how small, every single penny actually does help, believe me. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but right after this, we'll finish the story. Stick around. Welcome back. So if you watch the story, you know each and every night we love to count the vaccines, right? Take a look at our progress, where we're heading. And according to the CDC, 2.41 million Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose. And that works out to be 68.3% of the state's adult population. The governor says when we hit that 70% mark of adults, the state can fully reopen. We still need about 55,000 people to get vaccinated in order to hit that. In Washington, the state is reporting 4.16 million people with at least least the first dose. That is 67.8% of their population of 16 and older. That's the metric that they're using in Washington. They're also aiming to hit 70% of that number, but the governor says they're going to reopen by the end of the month, no matter what. Now, we count those numbers every night as they inch closer to 70%. When they hit 70, we'll fully reopen about a week later, hopefully. You might be saying, wait, I thought the governor said we are going to open as soon as we hit 70. And you're right, but that's not exactly how businesses work. And it's hard for them to be prepared for a grand opening when you don't have the ability to mark your calendar. I talked to the CEO of the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association about this.
Without question, small businesses, whether they're in our industry or not, would much prefer a date than this constant checking of the orange bar on the Oregon Health Authority website.
Talk to me about why it's important to have that date, because I imagine, just a restaurant as an example, if you're going to open up to full capacity, there are a lot of things that go into that, from the amount of food that you have to purchase to the people you have to have on staff and a lot of other things that go into preparing for an opening like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. As the regulations are rescinded, we will continue to see demand pick up. Now, one thing that's really important for your listeners to understand is the regulations right now are kind of camouflaging a real issue, which is the workforce shortage crisis in our industry and other industries, as people are trying to get back on the field, figure out their childcare situations, as all of our counties deal with the childcare desert phenomenon that we're seeing. We just don't have enough capacity to handle those needs.
Now, this is a topic we have been covering for a while now here at KGW. This is an article from last month. Oregon businesses are struggling to find people to hire right now. When they can't even be at full staff, they can't even fully staff that. And this includes jobs that pay better than minimum wage. So we're talking about a lot of industry here. There are a lot of things to blame for that. One reason people getting unemployment right now in Oregon, they don't actually have to look for work in order to get that check. But that changes soon at the end of July. Hopefully that helps. But there's also the issue, as he mentioned, of childcare. Now, we've had these childcare deserts in the state for a while, before the pandemic, really, and now after the pandemic, it's even worse. And what it basically means is that we don't have enough childcare professionals to account for the population of kids that we have in this area. And frankly, when parents don't have someone to watch their kids, they can't go to work. So when we open, finally, be prepared for a soft open, which is kind of a shame because economists think that people are really ready to spend money, and the businesses, many of them loaded with debt right now, really need that money. Now, for anybody watching this show for the first time tonight or for the first time in a while, I have been doing some commentary on the 70% metric and how I don't really think that there's any reason to use that metric as a finish line for these struggling businesses and restaurants and for our economy. Basically, to sum it up, think of it this way. We have millions of vaccinated people who can responsibly and safely pack restaurants and bars. Millions. The demand for the shot has plummeted so sharply that we are closing the mass vaccination clinics this week. And that tells me something about the adults who aren't vaccinated. Either they can't get the vaccine in the traditional way and they need special efforts to bring the vaccine to them, which is something the state is working on, or they don't want the vaccine and they don't plan to get the vaccine. So what do we do with that information? I think we open yesterday. I don't think that we should be holding businesses hostage because of flaws in our rollout or because of people who don't want the shot. We're all adults. If you don't have the vaccine and you don't feel comfortable going into a restaurant, which you shouldn't if you don't have the vaccine, then simply don't go. Now, if you are not vaccinated and you're comfortable with that and you decide to go into a packed restaurant and you get sick or really sick, don't act surprised because no one else is going to be. More than 99% of COVID patients in the hospital are people who haven't gotten the shot, who haven't been vaccinated. This is not new information. And if this stance seems insensitive to you, that's because it is. It is insensitive. I don't want it to be this way. I want everyone to be healthy and safe and get vaccinated. That's what I want. It stinks that this is the way it is, but it is reality. Unless we force people to get the shot or require businesses to use vaccine passports, and there is no plan to do either of those things, then we're not going to eliminate COVID. And this is going to be our reality. The virus is going to be here, getting unvaccinated people sick or really sick. Whether we're at 68% or 70% or 75%, the fact is vaccinated people are safe to go to dinner. And according to doctors, unless we get to 80 or even 90% of the entire population fully vaccinated, this argument doesn't change. All right, keep sending in your questions, your comments. Maybe something I just said might have spurred an opinion in you. Hopefully it does. Use that hashtag #HeyDan. We're going to finish the story next. Okay, so I got a couple of comments here. This one from Jack. Maybe people are tired of working for sub-poverty wages as a reason why people aren't going back to work. I'm sure there are some people who that is their reason for not going back to work, but it's not only, the low-paying jobs. It's other jobs as well. And Jack also wrote in and said, maybe you should change your email to heydan@kgw.com. Good idea, but you emailed me like 5 times tonight. I think the one we got's working. Thanks for being with us. Watch us tomorrow at 6.